Welcome back to... Wait, Bukayo Saka's good at football? I never knew that. Let's start this off with a thought experiment. You know I love them. This summer, Arsenal do it. They pull off your dream forward line signings. Osimhen, Williams, Gyökeres, Leao, Rashford, whoever it is, maybe even 2 players. They do everything you want them to do and sell Nketiah and Nelson for good money. Floors raised, 10 out of 10, no notes. Then, one day, an offer arrives. £25 million from, say, Bayer Leverkusen for Leandro Trossard. There are no offers for any other forward players, none for Jesus. What do you do? It won't be this simple, but for ease of argument, let's split this up into the yes, let's sell him camp and the no, don't sell him camp. For the yeses, I suppose your argument is this. By that point, say you'd sign 2 forward players, Trossard is arguably your 7th attacker behind your 2 new forwards, Saka, Martinelli, Havertz and Jesus. At 29 years of age, £25 million is probably his absolute maximum value you're getting, especially as he's 2 years out from the contract. It's a really good offer for someone who just won't start that many games next season. And for the no, don't sell him camp, I suppose your argument is this. How on earth are you going to sell someone who was so clutch for us last season? A goal or an assist every 119 minutes is only bettered by Saka in our squad. Winner at Everton, winner at Wolves, winner at United. Tough away grounds, big game gene. You're going to sell that, someone who's on low wages and happy to be a finisher. Won't somebody please think of Anne Hathaway? Where do I personally sit? I'll tell you later. Because that's not really what this video is about. What I was surprised by was the outcome of a poll asking that question and how split it was. Because I think it's a no-brainer one way. So I think it's the perfect springboard for a wider conversation about a perception shift that I think might need to happen at Arsenal. I spend a lot of time, as I imagine you do too, thinking about how Arsenal can get better. And as we all talk through every transfer link this summer, every bit of news, every Arsenal player's performance at the Euros, a thought is coming to my mind. Long term, where are we going? Who are we really trying to be? I see Arsenal right now in the 2nd tier of the elite European clubs. How you judge which tier each club is in is obviously incredibly subjective, but I try to take in loads of different factors to come to some kind of conclusion. European pedigree, size of fan base, domestic performance, history, commercial revenues, players, etc, etc. I see that first tier as Madrid, Bayern, City, and United with a couple of stars next to their name, and Barca with probably a star too. Of course, they're not all in perfect places currently, but individually they do well enough in enough of those categories to be the tier 1 clubs. The 2nd tier for me is your Liverpools, your Juventuses, maybe Chelsea, maybe one of the Milans, Atletico Madrid maybe Dortmund are there, PSG probably, I'm probably missing one, and Arsenal. Cards on the table, I want, and maybe you do too, to be in that next tier up. That's where I want Arsenal to be long term, and I believe we can do it. There's currently no club in that first tier from London. We have a strong, stable ownership who seem willing to invest year on year and seem unlikely to stop anytime soon. We have access to an incredible talent pool, a rich, deep history, our stadium's world class, our commercial appeal is skyrocketing, and we're in the biggest and best league in the world. In terms of picking out candidates from the 2nd tier who could bridge that gap, why couldn't we be considered one of the favourites? Now, there will be some who are watching this who say, you're being too ambitious, we'll never be that club, mate. It's just not who we are. And to that I say, why? Maybe it's youthful exuberance here, but what is actually stopping us other than our own ambition and historical precedent? We've got the money, we've been one of the great teams in Europe at points in our history, we've pioneered in the modern era and in the past. We've done it, and we did it the Arsenal way. We just need to find a sustainable way to stay there. One of the things I love about Arsenal is its family feel, its connection to North London, its rich heritage and its history, its values. We all feel proud when we hear good stories about Arsenal in the community, the charities and good causes the club supports, the reflection of diversity on and off the field throughout our history, the fact that Arsenal were one of the first top flight teams in the UK to champion a women's team, and so on. Almost weekly, I hear a new good story about the club from behind the scenes, doing right by their own people. And I love that. And I feel there's a way to get to that elite tier without losing that. It does require great leadership and time, but we all know high-performing institutions and people who are elite in their field. Strong businessmen, scientists, great musicians, artists, broadcasters, whatever, who, while remaining at the top of their game, never lost themselves along the way. The idea that Arsenal's solid community and family values somehow prohibit us from aiming to be at the top of Europe's elite tier, to me, just doesn't sit right, because I don't view them as mutually exclusive. You can do right by people and be an incredible operator. You just have to be smart enough to know how to do it. It's victory through harmony, not competing through harmony. So assuming we want to be in that category of club, for the access it will bring us the best talent, the best moments and biggest prizes in the sport, how do we do that? How do we actually put that desire, that long-term goal, into the present moment and start working towards it? How do we start down the path of who we want to be without losing who we are? Well, it's not simple, but let's start with some imitation. For a while now, we've been a club who've needed to be very economical with our talent and resources. We've all become experts on growing assets, contract management, development time. We've needed to invest in thinking about wage structures, cost to output ratios, profit and sustainability rules, and more. Mikel Arteta and his team have literally given us and the football world a Harvard-level course in how to do a rebuild, and I've learned so much along the way. But now, in some ways, we're sitting back down at that big table. And with that, I think one of the ways we stay there is this: changing the questions we're asking about our talent. I don't want to go too far into specifics on players because we all have our attachments and opinions, but I want to use 4 players as specific case studies of what I'm talking about. Smith Rowe, Kivior, Zinchenko, and Vieira. Start up a conversation about any of those 4 talents, and I think you'll find a lot of split and debate over each one in the fan base. Where they're at, are they getting enough chances, maybe injuries, what's their importance, what's their ceiling, do they need a loan, so on and so on. Smith Rowe, for example, clearly a huge talent. You could argue with someone for hours, and I have, about the chances he's had, the injuries, where his development might come from, his best position, his usage, etc., because these are the conversations we've had to have about every player since this project started to ensure we're maximizing our previously more limited pool and resource to get to where we are now. But I think those conversations have slightly pulled us out of addressing the task at hand today. Does Smith Rowe, maxed out, run a midfield against Pedri and Gavi, or Tchouaméni, Valverde and Camavinga? Does Kivior, no question, lock Haaland down 1v1 in a Champions League final? Does Vieira unlock a De Ligt Upamecano defence? Do we truly trust Zinchenko? You might have a couple of maybes in there, but otherwise we're looking at a no or a we don't have enough evidence. Now, does that mean you ship them all off this summer? You can't beat literally the best players in the world, so you're getting sold. This is the new mindset. No, of course not. I would say these are already great squad players. And by the way, who knows how those I mentioned might surprise me and show me a new level to their game, and I'd love to see it. But what it does mean is I think the conversations about what we do with these types of talents needs to get a lot simpler. I think we need to get a lot more comfortable with turnover and have a far shorter fuse with talent. At these elite clubs, if you don't show the level pretty soon, you're out because everyone wants to play for them, and that's partly how they keep their standards so high. If a talent is absolutely going to max themselves out and get to the level that we need them to be, 90% of the time, you just know. You just feel it. You knew when Rice stepped on the pitch at the beginning of the season that he's at the level we want to go to. We didn't need convincing for long. If they're in the squad and they're not there, that's fine. They can still contribute. But if we get a good offer and we have depth, it just doesn't need to be that deep. There is always more talent. And I think as Arsenal fans, we get too attached. We spend hours debating them, waiting years, calling for chances. What if this? What if that? And there is validity in all of those conversations, many of which I've been involved in. But my belief is when you get to that stage, or when you're trying to, ultimately, it slows you down. Proper talent screams in your face. It doesn't need a second, third, fourth chance. It might need the right environment to thrive, as we've seen many, many times. But if that's not here and now, when we're trying to win here and now, maybe they're not for us. We will absolutely make mistakes in this process and almost certainly let talent go that we shouldn't. But you can't make omelettes without breaking eggs or whatever. What is it? What's the phrase? The Madrids, Bayerns, Cities and so on of this world are so brilliant at this. They're so decisive. Look at the names leaving those clubs in the last few years. Right or wrong, they're big calls. Hernandez, Jesus, Hakimi, Zinchenko, Gravenberch, Laporte, Palmer, Varane, Mahrez, Casemiro, Sterling, and it's often pretty quick. Mane arrives, doesn't work, off to Saudi. Phillips arrives, doesn't work, get him on loan, and he'll go this summer. Now, of course, they have the money and they've stockpiled the talent to be able to do that. But if all goes well, we're going to be in that position pretty soon. You're always going to be developing talent to some degree. But what you don't do is stick by someone for 3-4 years when you know in your heart of hearts they probably won't be at the level needed. Have 3 million debates about, well, what if this, and then finally accept that they're not going to get in the team. It's been fine to do that up to now, but now I think we need to change. Sorry to repeat myself, but there is always more talent. So we need to be, going forward, decisive with our outgoings and let the talent behind the team that we are developing show us how good they are by banging down that door, because that's what they need to do now. We're nice, cozy, family Arsenal. We want to give people chances, and I get that. That's worked for a while, and as I say, I think we can take those values in some ways. But can we afford to do that if we want to get to that next tier? This also relates to talent incoming as well. This season, Bayern discovered Pavlovic, a defensive midfielder from their academy. You know who they're after this summer? Palhinha, same position. Grealish had arguably his best ever season in 22-23. Last summer, Pep goes and signs Doku, same position. Vinny Jr., another goal in the Champions League final. Don't care, mate. Mbappe's coming. You're finding a way to play with him, and that's it. If there's a better player, they all go and do it. We want to join this tier, so you either get bitter or you get better. I want to be extremely clear. We can't just be Madrid. We're not advocating some kamikaze approach to squad building where we sell everyone if they're not literally Kylian Mbappe. You do need a squad. High standards FC can only go so far. You have to make smart decisions. And in fact, that's part of it. Madrid, Bayern and City all make smart, economical decisions around talent, often. Look at Madrid's brilliant supporting cast in Ceballos, Nacho, Lucas Vazquez. Not everyone can or needs to be the world's best player. But we all sat there in April and we wanted and expected to beat Bayern Munich. So my question is, and especially to those of you who disagree with me, because I'm sure there's going to be loads of you, why don't we need to change? With our approach to talent at the minute, can you guarantee beating Bayern next season, the season after, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? We have to remain ourselves and do things our own way, of course. But is it worth, considering our now almost comparable resources to the clubs we're mentioning and where we want to get to, starting to take some lessons from them if that's where we see ourselves in 5, 10 years' time? In my opinion, absolutely. And this is just the start. And to return to the Trossard thing, that's the perfect example. Selling Trossard in that scenario, for me, is beginning to learn the lessons from the elite clubs. While I do see the no side of things, truly, £25 million for Trossard is a terrific offer. By keeping him around, you're essentially banking on Trossard replicating what he did last year, which was an overperformance of 0.66 non-penalty goals per 90 from 0.43 non-penalty XG per 90. We're always saying we need to sell at the right time, but then when we get offers for players who ultimately don't start for us, and in this hypothetical we've added on top of with big game genes and offensive quality, we don't want to do it. And I think this is one of the things we can begin to shift. Do you think it was extremely comfortable for City letting Sterling, Jesus and Zinchenko go in one summer? Do you think Madrid moving on from Ramos, Ødegaard and Varane in one summer was a breeze? Bayern's last summer with Pavard, Gravenberch, Hernandez, Sabitzer and Mane going was probably all done in one email, was it? While they all kicked back with a pina colada. Or probably a beer, wasn't it? German. No, you're never going to want to sell your favourite players. You won't. But we can't get attached if we want to be elite. What we can begin to do as early as this summer is realise that the talent is always out there. So sell at the right time, as hard as that can be. We are not in that first tier yet. But if indeed we even want to join that tier, we need to start asking ourselves what roads we need to take.
If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a coffee.